Angkor Wat in Cambodia is one of the wonders of the world. It is a total bucket list destination. It is also somewhere that lives up to its bucket list billing. The world's largest religious complex, temple after temple after temple, so much detail. It is just the most amazing place. But with kids, who would really think of going there with small kids? Well, me for starters. I'm Kathy from MummyTravels, and I visited Cambodia in summer of 2017 with my daughter who had just turned 5. So if you're wondering whether to go to Angkor Wat and how to do it with kids, I've got a few tips for you. First thing to say is do go. It is just amazing. Don't be put off going or think you can't with kids. One thing to consider first though is how old they are. I saw people there with babies. If you go, it sort of goes without saying, don't try to take a buggy. You will need a carrier. My daughter, as I said, was 5 at the time. We'd also been to Bayon in Burma about a year before when she was 3, almost 4. She coped really well with that. So I think about then is when you can really start to visit. Not convinced I would want to do it with a toddler. There are lots of climbs, there are lots of uneven surfaces, there are lots of points where you could fall off, there are open bodies of water. I can't imagine being able to enjoy it very much if I was spending the whole time watching a 2-year-old. Depends obviously on your 2-year-old though. Then my first tip, as with most things when you're travelling with kids, is take it slow. There is so much to see. As an adult you can get temple fatigue very easily. As a child they will get it first. You can get different tickets though, which mean you don't have to try and cram everything all in. There are one-day tickets. Incidentally, if you get those at sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock, they're valid from 5 until sunset and then all of the next day. So you get a bit of bonus time if you're not in Siem Reap for long. Then there are also 3-day tickets, which can be valid for a week. I think you may have to actually request that, but it's certainly something that's available. And also 7-day tickets, which can be valid for a month if you're staying for longer. And that means then that you're not trying to pack everything in, you can spread it out a bit more. It's worth getting there early or getting there late or doing a bit of a split day. So you do the morning, you leave the hottest part of the day and you do the afternoon. One thing I would skip altogether is sunrise. I know it's the classic Angkor Wat experience to see the sunrise over the temple, to get that amazing, you know, the building suddenly looming out as the dark turns light, but I don't think it's the ideal thing to do with a small child, unless yours particularly likes being woken up very, very early. In my case, she was also jet lagged, and I knew I just wanted her to have her energy for the day, so we skipped sunrise. The other thing is that it gets really busy at sunrise, I've been told. So again, it may not be the tranquil, beautiful experience that you are expecting if you're worried that your small child is going to be trampled. When you visit, do get a guide. It really is worth any extra money. You will just get so much more out of the visit. They will know the places to go, they will know all the little things to point out, you know, little animal carvings that my daughter loved in amongst all the stories. They will be able to advise you, they will be able to sort of tailor things so that if you need to slow down because your kids are getting a bit overwhelmed, anything like that. And also there is just so much to see, they will be able to make sense of it all for you. Unless you happen to be an expert in Khmer history and architecture, which I'm not. So we really would not have had the same experience without our guide. We travelled with a stubborn mule. And they were amazing. They found us a private guide out there and he was fantastic as well. He really brought everything to life. Also useful having an extra pair of hands just to look after my daughter while we were travelling around. Getting from A to B, because the temples are so spread out, it's not a case obviously of just going to one temple. We went round, as most people do, in a tuk-tuk. You can do it on a bike, but again, not really quite so practical with littler ones, especially when it's hot. And the tuk-tuk, as my daughter discovered, had the bonus that she lay down and had a nap in it at one point. So it can also just get closer to places, so you're not trekking for long distances getting back to a car. The thing that puts a lot of parents off going is they just think that their kids are going to be bored, but in actual fact, you know, Angkor Wat is just fascinating. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can totally be inspired by it, and kids feel that as well. You can pretend to be an explorer at Prohm, Tomb Raider style. You know, I mean, watch Tomb Raider obviously if they are old enough to do that. There's trees holding the temples up. Beng Melea, which we went to as well, the trees sometimes have not held it up, and there are these enormous piles of blocks which look like a jigsaw puzzle for giants, so you can let your imagination run wild there. You can look at the carvings, you know, pretend to dance like an Apsara. You can see, we saw characters from the Ramayana wandering around. I told her the story as we were walking, you know, so that all goes a long way to bring everything to life. You know, don't go into it thinking, oh God, this is going to be so tedious for them. It's just like an amazingly decorated building. Wherever you look, there's something else to see. There are myths and legends to learn. You know, if they like drawing, they can copy stuff. We took, I've spoken in some of my other vlogs, our Leap Hop Cambodia book, which was amazing because that had so many things to look out for. It had like I Spy, it had activities, doubled as a travel journal, so she could make notes, she could draw pictures, and it'll be a really nice memento as well. If you don't have that specific one though, you know, try and come up with other things, maybe activities that would work with it. If you can do a bit of research in advance, make your own little I Spy, that kind of thing. And when they start to flag, because they will start to flag, then that just keeps everyone engaged a little bit longer. There will be a few things that you can't do, but actually not that many. One of the few exclusions is if you want to climb right to the top of Angkor Wat, that's for over 12s only. And having seen how steep the steps up were, that's probably quite wise. There will also be a queue to get up because, again, for safety reasons, they limit the number of people at the top at any one time. Now, we were there in the green season when it is a bit quieter, and the queue was still about 40 minutes. And then it's probably about 20 minutes, I think, minimum, to get up, have a look around and get down. So that would either have meant leaving my daughter down with the guide for an hour or skipping it. And skipping it is what had to happen. It is worth considering travelling in the green season, though, if you're there with kids, because it is just that bit cooler. It probably will rain, but the chances are it'll do what happened when we were there, which is rain late afternoon. You'll have a sudden deluge, and then that's it. You know, you might well get blue skies as well. It might be a bit cloudy, but again, that keeps it cooler. And it means you've got fewer crowds, which is great when you're exploring. In the 2 days that we were going around the temples, which would be, let's see, late July, I only remember one major downpour while we were actually out, and that was we were sheltering at Bayon, and it actually looked like you could see all the detail. The rain had come down onto the statue heads, and you know, you could really see so much more after it had been washed clean as well. Bayon was definitely one of my favourites with my daughter. She was just amazed by the size of the huge heads, and she got really carried away trying to count them all. I think we stopped when she got to about 100. I think it's 216 in total. So, you know, that's another good way to amuse if you need to. In terms of the heat and a few practicalities, adults do have to cover up. You have to have covered shoulders, you know, at least covered down to your knees. You've got to be sort of modest while you're in there. For kids, it doesn't apply. You may well find that you want to cover them up anyway just to keep the sun off, but basically it's entirely up to you. It is worth, whenever you're going, obviously take water, take sunscreen, because a lot of the time you're out and there will be no cover there, no shade at all. My other tip, and this all comes back to taking it slow, is to pick your temples. Choose your temples wisely, as it were. It depends how long you've got, how much you can space it out, you know, what kind of ticket you might want to keep going back to places if you've got lots of time to kill. We had basically 2 days really to explore, and we saw 4 main temples. We saw Angkor Wat itself, we saw Bayon, we saw Prohm, we saw Beng Melea, and I think that was a really good, you know, introductory mix. It's some of the key highlights. We went to Angkor Thom as well and saw the statues on the bridge. We saw the elephant terrace. We went around the moat and saw the monkeys sitting there. You know, so you get to see more as well when you travel from A to B. But that gave us some of the renovated temples, one that hadn't, one Beng Melea, which has basically been half reclaimed by the jungle, although it has been restored a bit. You know, the famous ones, if you like. If you have longer, there are so many more that you could see though. And again, it's great having a guide because they can tell you of the many ones, which one is going to be fun for which reason. I think as part of any trip, you need to factor in some wind down time as well. For each day we had planned, it absolutely was not a full day. I just don't think my daughter could have taken that. So we finished, I don't know, maybe mid-afternoonish, 4 maybe, and went back to the hotel and went to the pool and just chilled out there. And that meant that then when we were doing more temples the next day, she wasn't totally flagging even before we started. However, I don't want to be rose-tinted about this. It's not like she skipped happily around for 48 hours going, "Mummy, the temples are so wonderful." There will be moments. Of course, there will be, there's always moments whether we're at home or away. And it's all sort of a bit about how you factor that in and how you deal with it. There was a point where she refused to get out of the tuk-tuk to see the statues at Angkor Wat. She wanted to just have a lie down on the bench. Well, that's fine. There was another bit where we discovered the mysterious carving at Prohm, which looks very much like a stegosaurus. And I thought that would be a highlight for her because she loves dinosaurs. No, she was not having any of it. She was just not in the mood. She took her umbrella and she wanted to draw Buddhas in the sand with the tip of the umbrella. Again, not quite what I'd envisaged, but fine, it kept her happy. And the rest of the time, it's the usual mix, a bit of encouragement, a bit of distraction, and when it comes down to it, a bit of bribery, if you need to. Sweets in a pocket of some kind, or ice cream to look forward to at the end. Always good for restoring a bit of energy and a few smiles. But last of all, and this comes back to my first point, do go, because there are amazing benefits as well if you go with kids. We were wandering around, for example, and saw there are monks who will give blessings, and they shake the water over people as part of the blessing, and then you leave your donation and so on. Because they asked, these are not just tourist attractions, these are working temples, for want of a better description. While he was doing this, the monk spotted my daughter, gave her this huge beaming grin, because Cambodians just adore kids. And, as a sort of bonus, shook the water over her as a little mini blessing. She, obviously being 5, couldn't work out whether she was just really intrigued by what the monk was doing or really cross that she was wet. But these are the kind of little interactions that I wouldn't have had if I'd gone on my own. We had such an amazing time in Cambodia. I would always say to people, you should go, you can go with kids. Without anything, you need a little bit of planning, but hopefully these tips have been useful. You can check out some of my other vlogs. There is a playlist below, which have more information